will one be afterwards equipped to remedy a process gone abnormal, rising up? Yes, absolutely. Another incentive behind this course is to create a psychological container where any deviation, any so-called faulty, any so-called undesirable risings, or any abnormality in the process will have the chance to be redressed. And because of extreme subtlety of this, I'm not going to go into the details of how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen on the account of how everything is interconnected. Because guess what? The reason why it went off the course or went somehow in less desirable way is because the circumstances or conditions have presented themselves in such way where there was a pranic, so let me say it this way, because there was disparity between the working of different compartments represented by specific currents of energy, known also as pranic currents. Whenever there is this misplacement of prana, and this is where the courses also has a large part, we're going head-on into the knowledge of pranas in the body, then this creates the possibility for complications in awakening. Because every psychic center, every wheel of energy, every wheels, I meant, as wheels, right, of energy, are respective abodes and expressions of pranic forces in the body, subtle body that is. So therefore, if prior to awakening conditions rise when there is misplacement of prana, then that awakening better not take place before that is remedied. You see? So therefore, of course, we will work on this in the course so that we create that healthy container from psychological, emotional, including emotional, and physiological, neurophysiological components so as to remedy that situation. And believe me, this is so doable. It is remarkable how people go almost being faced with obstacles for decades, not knowing that this is completely adjustable. But we're not going to lament why that is, because we are here to give ourselves to practical resolution of this, not about speculations of why and how it happened in our culture. I'm just going to update myself where we are with the chat. I found the okay, I think that's where we are. I found the glossary of terms accompanying the Yoga of Integrity course invaluable, and also the Facebook group for the Samadhi course. Will there be a similar supportive? Yes, absolutely. Thank you for this reminder. Yes, we have already made a decision to move underground on Facebook. We're no longer finding much use of just kind of keeping the face on a Facebook for, you know, we will create a closed group for course attendees only, because it's important, because the conversation is going to be therefore given that safety of the container for sharing, and the Samadhi one in particular proved to be very I think beneficial and very beautiful and enjoyable. Like I personally took great joy in reading all the comments, sharings and experiences. So yes. And as for the glossary of terms, we have almost like a slim book size of glossary compiled over the years. And we will certainly have one for this course, because it will make the job of everyone who attends the course so much easier to work with. And even though every Sanskrit term is always accompanied by its English equivalent, over and over, I do my due to make sure it's never just taken for granted that I'm somehow speaking to the initiated one and, those who are versed in the language. No, nor do I pretend to be a Sanskritist. No, all terms are nevertheless always accompanied by English alternatives, and we will provide a comprehensive glossary of terms. That's an interesting one. Prior to the course, what are the most recommended books to read? I think the best book will be the Book of Love, the Book of Tea, and the Book of Walks in Nature. Poetry, listening music, not books about it. Because you're going to come into the course freshly, with all this, excuse me, but I just read this book, and you saying this, this is going to be so counterproductive. So I will neither require, not recommend to. And I don't want to sound also, you see, this is where it's so subtle and tricky, because it's like, oh, wait a minute, so are you now all of a sudden one and the only last word on Kundalini? But if you are considering taking this course, and as I have mentioned already, so much out there, it will make much more fitting to give you the recommended list of literature afterwards, to soak in and further integrate whatever you have gained through the partaking to the course. Because the course is not just taking something and delivering it. I hope by now, those of you who took part in this work, and this is where you are invited to have these exchanges, maybe more with my facilitators, with people who have been studying for years, that everything comes through the synthesized approach where theory, practice, and direct experience, my personal direct experience, is fused into that what then becomes the body of knowledge communicated. So therefore it's never just like, okay, we've got this and that, and like I'm just going to repack and represent that to you. So therefore I would say, coming almost in that state of innocence of not knowing, even if you know a lot about it, allowing yourself to, I'm going to take this as a possibility of being taken by surprise. Why not? This is what I want to emphasize. So as not to somehow hold the primacy on this, because this will simply be inconsistent with how things are. But at the same time, if I would begin sending you or recommending you books to read, I will have greater job than in the Q&As of the course, not the pre-recorded modules, obviously, but in the exchanges that will form part of the course as we're having now, it will be much more difficult, because then your perception and understanding might be simply colored by what you have freshly read about this. I hope that makes sense. Yes, I think we have already mentioned that. Will there be ways offered to clear blockages? Absolutely. That's part of the Kundalini care, and a very important part, where you will be invited to step into that, where you will be able to, knowing what is happening, and assist to that. And some of this might come as a total surprise in terms of how everything is interconnected. From the food we eat, company we keep, to all kind of nourishment we partake on all its levels, because all this is interconnected. So of course we will be working with that. Okay, there's a clarification from Tejasvita. Thank you very much. My question was not on guiding others through such a profound process as a teacher, but rather about how to support friends who might be going through such a process. Yes, that's exactly what I meant when I said that once we have coherent picture already ourselves, then we can of course support with the best possible advice and shed light without having to assume that role of a guidance or a guide, simply by directing and pointing. Yes, that is certainly yes. I'm looking for the integration between what I am in brackets, and the bodily self lived fully. Is this for me? I'm looking for the integration between what I am and the bodily self lived fully. Is this for me? If I hear you correctly, then yes, it is for you, because the very opening of the course itself redresses the fundamental principles of what Shaiva Tantras deal with. And that is all based on I am. It all based on that, what is known also as pure subjectivity. So we roll from there, and I don't want to give just some kind of fragmented ins, simply because it will not be fair. I would prefer it to keep it all congruent and coherent to the course itself. But if you want to understand what is I am and what is, let's say, this body and this world, then this course is certainly for you. I cannot reemphasize enough that what pained me for many, many years is to watch how different seekers from different walks of life come and still carry this fragmented understanding because they happen to belong to a certain camp, this camp or that camp. And at some point, people began asking me these questions. Again, many years ago, there's one video entitled Advaita Tantra, What is this teaching? Where a man who has been on the path for many, many years, asking me this question because on one hand, he was always gravitated to this more so-called yogic approaches. On another, he realized the futility of it, how much it takes, and began walking that kind of more of a neo-Advaita non-duality path, where he found that there are no common grounds, and that caused yet more confusion. So he was seeking this reconciliation between this where the body is denied very often, denied, dismissed, overlooked, misunderstood, and whatever else you want to add, versus overly zealous yogic in its approach, which is not suitable to most householders because we are not capable of carrying that heroic attitude, that virya, into this work, which requires often complete renunciation of our daily activities. So this is what I consider to be one of the most important incentives behind this course is to bring this. This is why I said, perhaps for the first time, this is an attempt to bring this together. That coherent picture, coherent perspective on the way consciousness so-called coagulates to its magnanimity, infinity, and all that what is known as T, right? And how that same consciousness unravels itself across the universe. So that's what really this is at the core in terms of what to bring out into the open and put it together, combine it under beautiful umbrella of the teaching which withstood the test of time. So let me pick one more. Just now this would have to be probably randomly. Well, I will just proceed on how it was. Are there any dietary restrictions that one needs to participate beforehand as a way to prepare for this course? Well, not really, because we cannot begin with dietary restrictions, because also, let's not forget, this course is a large body of work of the course is going to be pre-recorded. And that is done on purpose, so that greater quality goes into the delivery. So that in post-production, when those of you who took previous courses, be it the Yoga of Integrity of the Samadhi, know what a joy to watch the recording, which is available for you at any time. Pause, replay, go back, and have it in your hands. And that placing kind of restrictions, if that was for a live program for that duration, then I could begin giving some suggestions which might be helpful and useful. In this case, the choice will be yours once we will fully go into the that part which is dedicated to the Kundalini care, so that we fully see the importance of what happens to this neurophysiological aspect of consciousness amidst the process if we are not making some often very important adjustments to the way we nourish ourselves. It has to happen on many levels, not just at one level of stop eating this, start eating that. It has to happen at the level of understanding, because we will invite you, and hopefully it will become clearer throughout the course, to work with energy at the level of energy. You see? But requirements like this cannot be placed, because that would make it almost nearly impossible for a lot of people to attend. So therefore, it could become counterproductive. But then it will be all up to your own innate intelligence what to follow and what to make your own. Will there be a homework during the course? Journaling, personal exercises? For sure, 20 push-ups, Russian kettlebells, walking on coal, and swimming in... no, that's another course. I'm getting a little bit... yes, of course, don't worry. If you want homework, I can give you, can fly over, do some homework here. With 3 kids and 15-month-old youngest, there's always plenty. No, I mean, being more serious, yes, of course. There'll be plenty of encouragement to be fully engaged. So if you're want to be fully engaged in all this, what you already mentioned here as journaling, but personal exercises will come out from in the form of those discourses which are combination of practice and application and guided meditations. So then, of course, you would naturally do that. Hopefully, everyone who takes the course hopefully will do that. So I cannot call you up on it. That's not the case here. Okay, that's great. Well, sweet. Okay, let this be a final question. Will the course touch the working on the psychological centers of the head? Okay, sorry, let me read it attentively so I don't misread it. Will the course touch the working on the psychological centers of the head apart from the normal 6 chakras? My awakening happened in such a way that prana just blew the top of my head, and I haven't come across any teaching touching this topic. There will be very, well, I would say considerable amount on the wheels of energy, chakras, and not in the way how it is understood and spoke mostly in today's spiritual circles, even those coming and having strong association with yogic traditions and lineages. Instead, as I have said, we will draw richly on, in my perspective, much more superior understanding of what the chakras represent, so as to separate this, what strongly got hold in the New Age because of the later tantric teachings, because of the influence of figures such as Carl Jung, who psychologized the subtle body to such degree for his own purpose and ends, so as to, in my perspective, adding, contributing to certain biases rather than bringing clarity, although making it so much into a fascinating topic that what we maybe should be grateful that he brought the attention and the awareness of the West, and especially to the academia, to Kundalini through his notorious seminars in the first part of the 20th century. But as I'm reading this, psychological centers in the head, okay, so that we will adjust this perspective. You might be in for a surprise that psychological centers in the head, they are not just in the head. Every psychic center is a psychological center. Just simple fact that one's life force can be completely dormant. That doesn't mean that that person does not live through a variety of psychological states. Even if the one in whom there is a certain undeniable degree of activation going on in the lower chakras, let's say at the base, in Muladhara, and yet there is no release. There is no absorption taking place, because consciousness, exemplified by awakened Kundalini, is not yet able to absorb the information associated with that center. Then that would also pose a lot of psychological dilemmas, which will obviously, to the uninitiated one, feel as if all this is somewhere in the head. It always feels in the head. but it's never in the head. Just like the seat of so-called sense of limited identity is never in the head, it is associated with the navel. This is the seat of our so-called egoic consciousness. It's in the navel. You see? So therefore, I just wanted to clarify this. Whatever you may not come across, this may sound boasting, but I was known for giving explanations to Kundalini process to those who already were in a position of teaching others, because they themselves were unable to understand, nor had no insight enough to know how their own unfoldment took place. So that I can tell you. It may sound as boastful as it is, but I'm saying that without any slight sense of the false sense of modesty. So therefore, if you want to really understand this, what is happening in your head, or what is happening in your chest, or in your throat, or in your sacral plexus, when it comes to this subtle body, then this course might open some possibilities that you haven't come across yet. So that's, I guess, putting it as plainly as I could.